Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Comics Della Morte. And thank you guys all for waiting this long. I know I've been on a leave of absence for medical leave for about a month, but I'm finally back. And we have a new guest, Phoebe Xavier. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me on, Ronnie.
Do you have, I think I hear static, but it'll be all right.
I
But
also might, it could be the rainfall.
yeah. So before we get into it, what made you fall in love with comics in the first place?
Oh, I started reading comics at a very young age. I kind of learned to read at a very young age. And when I graduated from Dr. Seuss, my mom gave me a couple of boxes of her old comic books. She used to collect
Yeah.
in like the Silver Age in the late 50s, early 60s. She was buying comic books. And she
Mhm.
handed me a couple of boxes of those when I was like 4 years old or earlier.
Do you remember what comic it was that really made you fall in love with them in the first place?
I mean, what I read from my mother's books was stuff like Superboy, Superman, Supergirl, Jimmy Olsen, Lana
Gotcha.
Lang, Lois Lane. Like, and
Classics.
she was buying books at the time when every single character in Superman had their own book.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and also some stuff that fell into Marvel, like Tales from the Crypt and The Witching Hour.
Yeah, from, well, Tales from the Crypt from EC Comics. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
That might, yeah, I don't know if that's what it was on back then. But yeah, she handed those books to me when I was pretty young, and that's what
Awesome.
made me fall in love with comic books. Yeah.
Alright, so from what point that you fell in love with comics book that you wanted to actually do this as as a career, as a company?
I think as a kid I wanted to, like when I was like 10 years old, I tried to draw my own comic book and write my own comic book.
Mhm.
Um, and I wasn't definitely didn't have the drawing capability to do it, but I pursued writing in a number of different medias since then. And
Yeah.
but never put down the desire to create cool comic books.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to do it, but if you look at the big comics out there, the big companies, they got a person to do everything. So one person's not doing the artwork and the inking and all that stuff. So that's at least what I could say that I love about comics, that it could be a group project.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So going into that, how did you start the 123 Go publications?
I had been writing my book Sidereal Apogee, and I started to produce an anthology book, Gunmetal Black Ops, as
Mhm.
well. And when I started to produce a couple of books for other people, other than just the few that I was mostly the creative force behind, things that other people were writing or were the creator of the characters of, I decided to pull it under an umbrella of
Mhm.
what a brand basically, and that several of my friends that I've been working with for years have a couple of books that are put out under 123 Go, and then a lot of it is my vision, but some of it is other creators that I believe in and that I want to see their work available and published.
Awesome. Awesome. Always glad to hear. Because that's, I mean, it's easier now for people to do their own like Kickstarter or Indiegogo. But when you have a group of people like that are just driving force and spreading word, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, it's good to be a part of a team of people who believe in each other's art and each other's vision.
Hmm. So what would like, I know we have the book that you sent me, but what was the very first thing that you sat down and decided that, okay, I want to get this story out and I need to tell it?
I mean, there's a story that I wrote in the early 2000s. It might even be a 1999 thing because it was around 1999 to 2000 when I was still like on AOL. Um, and I wrote a story about two wolves who kind of march across frozen lands, and then like are going to a place where wolves go to die, and they're talking wolves. They're definitely like communicating and joking around with each other the whole time. And then they come across like an evil sorcerer bunny that has like sort of usurped and corrupted the place where these wolves are supposed to like go and lay to rest. And
Gotcha.
both of the wolves die in combat with that evil rabbit, and that is a story that I don't have available to me anymore. Like the website that I posted it on or wrote it on like got taken down in 2007, and I never had any other copy of it. But
Oh
yeah,
man,
that
that
was one of the
sucks.
that is probably the first short story that I wrote like just from inspiration, not because it was a school
Gotcha. You know,
assignment.
even if it was for a school assignment, we put our heart and souls in that type of thing.
Yeah, some of it, the shit we care about.
Mhm. So what was like your big like book or comic that you started doing for your website? I think you already said it, but just to be clear and go into more detail about it.
Oh, Sidereal Apogee is
Hmm.
a cyberpunk comic book. It's an anthology book that all takes place in the same timeline, but it's varying characters. It's like a rogues gallery of different characters. Some of them are recurring, some of them only appear once. And it's gritty stories that I sometimes define as like bad guy versus even worse guy, and like the bad guy doesn't always win.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, and it is, but yeah, it's definitely in a very cyberpunk vein in a shared universe or a continuity that I pretty well defined. That some of the same characters from that comic book appear in the book that I'm publishing right now. The book that I hopefully will have my copy by Saturday.
Awesome. Congrats. Congrats.
Thank you.
So with the open share world, like since you have your own company, has anybody within that group decided that, hey, I want to write a story that's based off of the same universe? Has
Okay,
anybody approached that?
yeah, a few people. But first of all, I just want to say that it's not a company necessarily. I don't have it like
Gotcha.
incorporated or on paper as a company. It is a brand. It is yeah, a collective, but not
Hmm.
necessarily anything that on paper is actually legally a company. But yeah, so Jeffrey Haas, who helped set up us talking tonight,
Hmm.
um, is a writer that works with me. He has the book Santa Claus is a two-part Christmas horror that he put out through 123 Go Publications. He also has put a story or two towards Gunmetal Black Ops, which is our espionage book, and
Nice.
he writes the series Moloch Reigning Devil, which sort of came from a story in Gunmetal Black Ops, and but what was and he also has a story that he wrote for Sidereal Apogee, the uh, graphic novel that I made out of issues 1 through 4. I've
Hmm.
found that because I don't have like the right files anymore for certain pages in my graphic novel and Sidereal Apogee number 3 and number 4, that I can't publish physical forms of them through my printer. It would have to be like really watered down DPI, like how good the resolution is.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I'm only able to offer those books as PDF. But yeah, Jeffrey did a story, Pulse Overdrive,
Hmm.
with JMA as the artist that he works with on Moloch Reigning Devil. And they did a story called Pulse Overdrive on that one. And also my friend Hirsch is working on a book with Andy, or a story with Andy Luke. One of them is from South America. Hirsch is from South America, and Andy is from Ireland. I want to say like
Hmm.
Glasgow, and if that's a place in Ireland. Um, and that they're working on a story called the Sugar Skull Shootout for Sidereal Apogee number 7. That,
Gotcha.
yes, that is a work in progress.
So with the branding name, like, did you come up with the naming, or was it just something off the whim?
I did. I initially was just using Go, Go, as my the brand at first, and then I found out like Dilbert or something like that's like their publishing, their little name for the publishing house or whatever. So I changed it to 123 Go, and with an exclamation point at the end is how I usually will have it rendered.
Yeah,
And
because I had to put in detail because when I put in 123 go, it brought like a kid's like YouTube channel up first.
actually, I think on Facebook the biggest numbers that have 123 Go associated with it is like a travel agency of some sort.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so 123 Go, then exclamation point space publications is the overall branding, the way that I have it as like the official designation.
Yeah. I like the logo, especially the way they designed the word go. Very different.
Thank you. It's actually like a font that I don't own the rights to, which is why I have another friend of mine that is works in logo design and does graphic design,
Hmm.
working on a new logo. And so we
Nice.
have like one or two new ideas for a new logo that I might do that will be like wholly built by us, not designed by a wonderful font artist, but like I don't own the rights to that, the
Hmm.
logo as it sits right now.
So when you were first writing books, like, were you around a group of friends or did people start coming to you saying, "Hey, I want to be part of this brand"?
Oh, I think that everybody, most of the people, not everybody, but most of the people that I work with in on my comic books these days are people that I met through Facebook, through various
Hmm.
Facebook forums where comic creators come to talk and look. If you're a writer, you're looking for an artist. If you're an artist, you're looking for someone to pay you.
Yeah. 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 Facebook and especially things like Discord now, those things are very popular.
Yeah, I don't know very much about Discord. I just recently got on Discord to be able to watch fish shows because I'm able to do that sometimes.
Yeah. Gotcha. So when it comes to you, you do the writing part of the comics and everything. Is there a certain genre that you love more than any type of genre? Like, okay, I have to write this type of style because I don't like writing too kiddie-ish up and I don't like writing westerns.
Um, so I genre is something actually that I'm sort of exploring at the moment.
Mhm.
Um, One of the stories in Superliminal Latency, the short story collection that I'm publishing this month, um, is called The Slipstream Fiasco. And in my mind, the way I intended it and the way I claim it in the introduction is as a slipstream cyberpunk story. And my editor contested that for a moment, and like he conceded that some parts of it, some aspects of it were, but like that the coherence of the overall first person narrator kind of is not as surreal as like maybe warranting the designation of slipstream. So, which is why I'm currently reading this book, which is a magic realism sort of book,
Oh, okay.
Borges Ficciones.
Mhm.
And I also just read John Courtney Grimwood, The Blues at the End of the World Blues. And so I'm sort of exploring getting into, or at least knowing what genre I'm in, and like when I shift lanes, like be aware of the finer points of these things.
Gotcha.
Um, and But yeah, cyberpunk is kind of my favorite thing, my favorite my wheelhouse maybe. um,
Really love
that
the front cover.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Kill Bryant painted that, digitally painted that a few years ago, and that is Grace Atrophy. She is one of the um, central characters in the story The Trojan Salvage, which is also in
Mhm.
Superliminal Latency. And she is a hacker slash mercenary and kind of a baddie. She's definitely a bad bitch. But yeah, she appears in Sidereal Apogee in at least two issues as well.
And with this, like, how long does it usually take you to write your stories?
It all depends.
Yeah.
Some things get written pretty quick, and some of them, like, I let it take a long time because I'm working with someone else, and I have to be dependent on when their line art or their color work or whatever gets done because I don't put the letters on at the end um, until I have like the either if it's in black and white, then I wait till I have all that. But like black, wait for the line art and the colors to get done before I start inserting letters usually.
Hmm. Now, when you first
So,
started,
but yeah,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there's one story in Superliminal Latency that I wrote in like 3 hours in a single sitting in Boulder, Colorado, a library in Boulder, Colorado. And that one actually got picked up by the podcast series Dust Horizons and is
Mhm.
available for audio. You can listen to it for free right now if you go to Dust Horizons and put targeted adverts in there as the title. That's the one I wrote.
Awesome. So, with you as being the writer and everything, and being a fan of comics, for some people it's hard to do, some people it's not. When you're working with the artist, do you find it hard, especially in the beginning, to make sure that you're not writing so much where they can't fit in the boxes? 'Cause especially a lot of new writers, when they get into comics, they have to learn how to tone the wording down and focus more on, like, having more action and less so many words in a box.
Yeah, yeah. So I so a lot of the times when I'm writing a story personally, I will just tell my artist what I want to see on the page. I won't even tell them what the dialogue is because I don't
Gotcha.
necessarily even have it written yet. I will uh I think Kirby and Stan Lee used to work like
The
that on
Marvel
a lot
way,
of books.
the Marvel
What's
way,
that?
yeah. The
Yeah,
Marvel way. Yep.
yeah. And so but other projects sometimes I do write the dialogue in, but I as a letterer, I'm very, very conscious of that. But I
Mhm.
do encounter sometimes people who I'm doing the letters for the stuff that they've written that like, yeah, they did not take into account like how big our letters are and how much of the panel they're gonna take up. Which is fine.
Right.
I always find a way going back and re-editing and working with these people, like letting them know, hey, we're either flipping this panel around this way so that this person talks first because that's like the way it's supposed to sequence across a page,
Mhm.
or just like yeah we're cutting these lines of dialogue because this panel is already filled with a little bit of action that we need to display.
Awesome. So let's see. When it came to reaching out to new people, like, were you excited and surprised how many people wanted to be part of this branding?
I mean there's only like 20 of us I'd say that are like even close to semi-active with it, like it's
Yeah.
not like we're a cult.
But still, that's a lot of people for some places.
Yeah, I would say so, but I think like I've always kept it in good spirits, and like
Mhm.
I don't think any of us are really so actually some at least one of the people that I work with is a full on like makes his career from writing.
Yeah.
I'd say that most of us though are kind of like pro am where like we do make money from it occasionally, but like we're mostly like trying to go to cons and sell our books and like meet people, network and continue to build. But yeah, no, I work with a brilliant person called Christopher McCulley who is part of the
Mhm.
Stokerverse, which is like Doc Ray Stoker, the extant heir of the Bram Stoker family, who owns the
Nice.
rights to Dracula. Basically,
Sweet.
Him and Chris work on a universe, and they have a role playing game, a novel, graphic novels that are like their new writing of what is still considered like um, a canon for
Mhm.
Dracula. Yeah,
Gotcha. Very cool. Very
yeah.
cool. So have you done a lot of cons yourself or not really?
Comic books.
No cons, like Comic
Oh,
Cons.
I
Have
have
you
done
gone to
none. I've done
none?
none actually. I had just been getting to the point of where I like felt that I had enough books that I could like sit there with a stack of them and sell them. And then
Mhm.
COVID happened, and I haven't really been
Yeah.
to a con since. Yeah,
Gotcha.
but I'm looking for next year. I'm trying to be a part of New York Comic Con. If I can, I would like to make my debut there next October.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I haven't even done cons myself, but, it's a lot of work. Like, it's like you gotta have the table, you gotta have all that stuff. It's always best to, like, at least if you have a friend who does cons, to at least try to share a table with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with, the actually, with the branding and everything, like maybe you guys should all get together and share a table together just so that way you'll be not just promoting your comics, but promoting the brand too. That'd be a great
Yeah,
idea.
I definitely am going to invite some of the other people that I work with to tables to sit at the table and sell their books with me. And they don't even have to all be books that are through 123 Go. If they have other books, they can sell it. Yeah,
Nice.
no, I've talked to a couple of the friends I work with about these possibilities at different times, and yeah, I hope NYC Con works out. Otherwise, I know New England has a few other ones that I might. I'm in
Very
Vermont.
cool.
I'm in Vermont these days, so yeah, I'm only like maybe 4 miles out or 4 hours outside of New York City.
Gotcha. Very cool. So when you're like, since you have a group of artists and a group of writers, with each book that you have, do you usually go to the same artists or do you feel like that, hey, I think this artist would be better for this project?
I would say that with the anthology books, there's a little more flexibility. With
Hmm.
Sidereal Apogee or Gunmetal Black Ops, there's a little more flexibility. But I would say that with a title like Moloch Reigning Devil, where Juan Manuel Almaran has been the artist for every single Moloch story so far, and there have been like at least five of them. Um, so yeah, there's consistency there. My character, Trouble, Tamika Kennedy, she is like my comedic superhero action cyberpunk story. And there's only one issue of that out so far, but Schwen Bunag is my artist there, and he and I have several pages of issue number two done, and we also have I think 5 or 6 of a 10-page Halloween story done with her, which is Trouble versus Cthulhu.
Hmm.
And so yeah, for certain projects, I definitely look for the consistency of the same artist, and
Yeah.
then for the anthology stuff, I think I'm more open to trying out artists on different characters.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the great thing with having like a group like that. Like you can really look at artists' portfolio and it's like, wow, this one, his artwork or her artwork is going to go really great with the story I'm trying to tell.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, aesthetics, finding the
yeah,
right aesthetic
exactly.
that
Exactly.
matches both the story and the vibe.
So I see in the description for the video, I have a link to where people could buy the books. What's the link to? Indie or
Indie,
something like that? Yeah.
indieplanet.com/123go. And that's where you can buy all the comic books that I currently have for sale. The book
Mhm.
Superliminal Latency will be up for sale there soon as well. We might be live on Kindle as soon as like Monday. But yeah, once I've never printed a book other than a comic book, so this will be my first book that I published. So I ordered a author's copy that I should have this weekend to make sure that I didn't fuck the margins up or that like on page it looks as good as it did as a PDF.
Nice.
And then if it does look good, ready to sell, then I'll order more to sell people, and we'll make it live on Indie Planet for people to be able to order it there as well.
Awesome. Now, with you as being the writer and everything for a lot of your stories, is there one character from one story that you're like, I love this character a lot. I could see me writing for this character for a very long time.
I like there's several. There's like a lot. But yeah, I definitely like Trouble, Tamika Kennedy.
Mhm.
There's also a character, Satsuki Hattori, who is in Sidereal Apogee number 5. She's one of my favorite characters that I've written. I haven't even written extensively about her, but I just really, really like her as a character. Um, I've written a number of stories about the pirate duo, smuggler pirate duo, Hardick and Sendo.
Mhm.
They pop up in Sidereal Apogee at least 3 or 4 times, and they're in the book Superliminal Latency at least 3 times. So yeah, I definitely enjoy writing about them. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't pin it down to a single character. I would say there's a number of them that I have a lot of fun writing about that I return to.
Gotcha. Very cool. Now, also with your favorite characters and everything, when you're writing the stories, We all have those parts where like this is our weakness in this part of the writing. Like what when you're writing a book, what's the most difficult scene to write for you?
I mean, with superliminal latency, I wrote a number of scenes that involved rape or murder. In
Hmm.
one of them, the final story in it is called rape underscore chase underscore kill dot fdv, and
Hmm.
I wrote a first person gang rape story that actually has additional twists and detail, but that's the gist of it. And
Yeah.
I've actually I've had 3 podcasts so far,
Hmm.
and I've done like maybe 20. Let's say we've done 20 successfully, but out of 23 or 24 we tried to do, at least 3 have been like, "Hey, we can't do this because of the subject matter." And it's that story specifically, and 1 or 2 other stories with like violent murder or violent rape incidences that given us a degree of notoriety so far as we
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
and but yeah, so and writing those scenes though was what was most difficult, because
Hmm.
especially when writing something from the first person perspective, like you're envisioning horror in in a way that you would never want to experience, but you want to put it on page in a way that you think is believable to the reader. And trying to write shit like
Yeah.
that is kind of
Well,
hard sometimes.
yeah, I definitely agree because in my comic, I mentioned how like Lucifer the devil raped this woman and gave birth, but I didn't go into great detail about it. But even just using that word in one sentence could like put people off. But
Yeah,
if
it
you
can
read,
trigger people.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's one of those things that you're not trying to trigger people. You're just trying to indicate that even if it's one of those things that they force themselves upon that person, they still is going to understand what that scene is all about.
yeah, whether you use the word as a particular word directly, yes. If the scene is written well, then they understand what horror has occurred.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely don't write those type of stories to try to trigger people.
Hmm.
I write them because I come up with an idea that I think has not been done before, and I'm like, hey, I have an idea for a story, so I write
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
And
it's
that's
not personally targeting people.
yeah.
Yeah,
But it's gonna be one of those things that no matter how well you try to make it not hurt someone's feelings, someone's always gonna be put off by it, especially when it comes to like sci-fi and horror, because you could have like a gory scene and they're gonna be put off by it. But you know, Stephen King, if you read the books, there's a sex scene in there. So yeah, it's really hard, but
or the stand in the
yeah,
unabridged original, there's like a rape that someone rapes someone with a gun, like
yeah, hmm,
definitely like this sort of horror has been expressed
yeah,
in various medium in the last 50 years. I'm not the first person to like write about these topics.
yeah. Especially with like lifetime event movies, you might have a guy that's forcing himself upon the woman, and she's getting revenge. So yeah, it's tough. You want people to read your book, but at the same time, you're not gonna make everyone happy.
Yeah,
So
not necessarily. Yeah, can't
yeah,
can't uh can't fool all the people all the time.
yeah. So do you have anything else to talk about? Because we're almost into 30 minutes, and
Yeah, no worries.
just want to ask you some fun, like, horror movie questions or slasher questions.
All right, cool. Yeah. Oh,
But
but can I ask which stories you did read in the book?
I started just reading the beginning. Just
Guns and Gunpunk.
hmm just I really
Okay,
like that.
cool.
But I'm gonna definitely start reading more. But I'll definitely like tell you later on like what parts I really really like the most.
Please
But
let me know. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, with anyone that's new to the show watching the rerun, it's a comic book show slash horror show, and we're gonna get into some horror movie questions. So you growing up as a kid or now, like what is your most favorite horror movie and why?
So one of the movies that I regularly cite as my favorite is Suicide Club.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and there is another Japanese horror movie that I enjoyed. I think it's the Interview, um, and which I haven't seen either of these in fucking 15 years, but they're very very fucked up movies. Um,
It's Japanese, you know. Yeah.
um, and I don't know, like I lean more towards like the fantasy end of horror,
Like
so
dark
like
fantasy. Yeah.
well no like shit like even Hellboy, I would enjoy that, something like that
Oh
that maybe
yeah.
isn't like a hardcore horror, but is still like demonic forces at play or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, like the Ninth Gate, I think it was with
Johnny Depp.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that would be
Yeah,
one of
that
my
was a good
favorites
one.
all time. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I'm not into a lot of slasher movie shit. Like as a kid,
Gotcha.
I was too scared to watch like Nightmare on Elm Street and shit, even though like that was the big horror movie in the '80s when I was
Hmm.
little. I didn't watch Jason. I went to I saw Scream in the theaters. Oh, I saw Smile recently in the theaters. That was a really good movie.
Smile was
Um,
amazing.
yeah, Smile was good. Like it's like a new take. It's not like them redoing a bunch of other people's
Hmm.
tropes. They like
Yeah.
seriously honed in on a scary sound effects kind of fucking ambience, and
Hmm.
yeah, that was a fucked up, well written, well directed, and produced movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of want to go see this. What is it? Megan. I kind of want to go
Oh
see
yeah,
that.
Megan. Hmm.
I do like sci-fi horror a little bit, and kind of want to go see that, but I'm also terrified.
Gotcha. And
Like
I know.
I
Go ahead.
unironically am terrified of AI coming to
Gotcha. Gotcha.
life.
I know you said you didn't watch much of like slashers and stuff, but like
Yeah.
what was like growing up as a kid when you seen the poster or seen their image? What was the one slasher that did scare you the most? If you really think back.
I don't think the poster scared me.
Hmm.
Um, and but as a kid, I was most terrified of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Gotcha. Okay. And with the let's see, what what was the one movie that you remember, like not as a adult, but like the number one movie that scared you the most?
Um, I mean, I definitely probably was at sleepovers in my youth that like Nightmare on Elm Street movies were
Hmm.
on, where I would like leave the room and be like, "You guys are crazy. I don't know why you're doing that to yourselves."
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then you
um,
all go to sleep. Yeah.
and I can sleep soundly, and they're
Mhm.
dreaming of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, right. That's cool. So with let me see. Was there a horror movie that you liked since you're Japanese? Did you What was probably your most favorite Japanese horror movie?
I'm Polish, and the two that I already listed.
Mm, gotcha. Do you ever watch you ever read Uzumaki?
What is that?
A Uzumaki, that's a good one.
Okay, that's a movie.
Yeah. It's a book, it's a comic book as well.
Oh, okay.
It's a yeah, it's a horror manga. It's a definitely something. If you like Japanese manga horror, you'll definitely like this one because
I am so.
he's very much into body horror and stuff like that and supernatural. So yeah, you might like that.
Okay, the other sort of Japanese stuff that I like to digest is like cyberpunk type stuff, and I'm also a big fan of Blade of the Immortal, the comic book Blade of the Immortal. Um, but yeah, Ghost in the Shell is my like all
Oh
time favorite
yeah,
anime. Motoko Kusanagi is my like number one Razor Girl, and but yeah, I definitely in the '90s and early 2000s like consumed like a lot of cyberpunk anime, and yeah, but so me being I went to Tokyo once for like 6 hours, and yeah,
that's a lot
I
more
do have
than a lot of us is gone.
Right. No, it was a layover from Sydney, Australia to Los Angeles. But yeah, the I have been fascinated with Japanese culture for a long time, and I sometimes try to study the language. I would not say I'm very good at it, but scoosh, Nihongo ga scoosh.
Gotcha. Now with the Japanese and stuff, it especially with the 2000s, it started becoming big. But were you ever a fan of when they started bringing in like, The Ring and The Grudge?
I have seen parts of The Ring, I think, but I don't think I've seen The Grudge. I I don't know. Horror definitely transformed sometime in the last 15 years as far as what goes on theatrically.
Yeah.
And I think it got like a little more over the top with some of the gore. Shit that like Bruce Campbell would have been doing comedically in the
Hmm.
80s. They started doing like really like grindhouse, like in your face, like let me make this as gross as possible for people. And I do think I find it, yeah, it's kind of ironic that as the horror movies and even the horror comic books get more progressively like gory and fucked up, that then I have a problem promoting my book because it has rape scenes and murder scenes in it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you would watch this, you would pay money to go watch this if someone would turn it into a movie. But because I've explicitly described it in
Yeah.
a prose form, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is
Like I
scary.
say, like I say all the time, I don't mind watching gore, but I'm not gonna watch like, gore that's like gross. Like I say it all the time. I'm not a big fan of the human centipede movies, but there's a fan base out there
Gratuitous,
for
yeah,
it.
gratuitous shit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and even like to a degree, some people will do it like over the top cringy just for the sake of like you get some sort of visceral reaction from people that they'll be
Oh yeah.
grossed out, and like that. I'm not writing, even though some of my stuff at the end result winds up being sort of cringe. That you're like, oh, I did not want to imagine that. Like,
But it's
I
there
don't.
for a purpose.
Yeah, I don't. I didn't set out to do it that way
Mhm.
necessarily.
Yeah, and that's the
You know.
problem with a lot of horror movies now, especially like the Human Centipede or stuff like that. They're just looking for a shock value. They're not there to really tell a story.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Uh, well, let me see. Hmm. I don't know if anybody in the audience has any questions. I think
It's
there's
been
only
great
just
being on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
not a problem, not a problem. I hope I try to ask a lot of questions. It's been a while since
Yeah,
I've
no
done the
worries.
show.
Hopefully, like nobody is triggered in the audience the way other audiences would have.
No, I don't think so. There's a lot of people here who have actually most of the people here are like they have their own horror comics or they're big
Hell yeah,
horror fans. So, have
hell yeah.
I don't think you have anything to worry about like other comic review shows because I think they're just focused on comics and not the horror aspect.
Yeah, yeah. No, I talked to Jeffrey too about targeting more even people that do horror movies on their
Hmm.
podcast, because like um yeah, I really am not out here to offend anyone's audience. The way the book is designed is with an introduction that tells you which stories are worse than the others so that you can avoid the really fucking graphic ones if you want to. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
definitely it's user friendly.
mhm. Yeah. It's like how do you really go about like describing something like it's difficult, but as the writer, you need to tell a story, and there's going to be people who are going to hate it or love it.
Absolutely. What is your
Well,
comic book about? You
oh
said something
well,
about the devil.
mine's is a fantasy horror comic. Basically, a woman is captured.
Oh no, I lost the signal.
Lucifer, oop, Lucifer takes form and has her way with her, and while she's impregnated, she's being watched by the cult to bring the Antichrist upon into the world. But this vampire helped her to get out of there and took her to a sanctuary where humans and monsters live together. But the monsters and humans that live together are like related. It's like you have family members that are like vampires and you have family members that aren't, and they're just living together in harmony. But then the father's like, no, I have other plans. So he literally destroys everything that his son loves, and after thinking that he killed his son and destroyed everything, he wakes up from a stone statue to wreak vengeance on his father in 1984.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's based, and the story's called A Vengeful Heart. So it's, taking, someone who like Lucifer's son and making him into a good guy. Kind of like Hellboy in a way. So
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen the it was a Hulu series, Little Demon. It's animated.
I
Um,
love that. I
yes, it
love
was
that.
so good. It was so
It's
funny.
so good. So
Yeah,
good.
I laughed harder to that than I did to Rick and Morty season 6.
Yeah. But yeah, it's my comic. It's fun because some scenes are black and white, some scenes are color, because I want it to be where like the supernatural world is like, very dark and gritty, while the real world is very colorful. So yeah. I'll send you some
Cool.
pictures.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great having you on here. Maybe next time, once you get closer to having another book out, if you want to invite one of your artists on the show as well,
Hell yeah.
or even for fun, we could talk about a whole episode dedicated to like Japanese horror, because while we're
I would
not,
have to
while
I would
yeah,
have to do homework, but I could do that.
yeah, because when we're not doing interviews, I'll have people on like talking about like a movie, or we'll talk about a certain genre. So
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in coming back and talking about it in detail, and then maybe talking more a little bit about the movies that I already mentioned. But yeah, let me do my homework. I'll talk to Jeffrey. Maybe we can schedule that.
yeah, yeah, because like I said, I gotta get Jeffrey on the show. He's he set me up with a lot of people. Like it's good at this point that I don't have to look for people to interview. Like Jeffrey's like, hey, are you open on this day? Are you open on that day? Are you open on this day? I'm like, yeah,
He's
yeah,
passionate about the podcast world.
oh yeah, and it makes a difference because it helps not just me, but it helps you guys as well, because sometimes you need to go out there and promote your work instead of just on Facebook, because Facebook ads, you're paying for them, but half the time you're not making a big boom, just for the fact is that you have like automated computers generating everything.
Yeah, the hits that you get on your Facebook ads sometimes are just going to accounts held by bots anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
like one of my friends, he's a great comic book artist, great YouTuber. His book, as he explains it, is kind of like zombies meets the Goonies. A group of kids fighting against zombies, but his title is called The Young and the Dead. And because of those words, young and dead, the Facebook the Facebook computer took his ad down just because they had those two words. That's why it's
Yeah,
best to like have like real people promote your stuff, because a computer is just going to see stuff and they're going to flag it as some like harassment or something like that.
it can happen. Yeah, it definitely can. Isn't that like an old Clint Eastwood movie too, Young and the Dead? Or is that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? I don't know.
The
I
good,
think
bad,
that's
and
an
the
old
ugly.
cowboy movie though, The Young and the Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, well, it was great to have you on the show. Like I said, have to get you back on sometime, and I'll send you some pictures of my comic.
Please do. Thank you for having me on, Ronnie. Keep it
Not a problem.
horrified. Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you all for showing up in the chats, and I'll see you all next week. Peace.